Hello. Tonight I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Module 4. So let's go have a look. We'll start by looking at our timetable. I'll just make a point and I'm going to send an email out in just a moment about this. I'm almost finished the mini analysis, grading the mini analysis. I'm not really grading it, just giving you feedback. It's a complete, not complete. And then I'll look at this by the weekend. So it was due a few days ago, and I'll try to get that out by the weekend. Of course, you're all going to go ahead and start working on this anyways, but I will leave you some constructive feedback, so make sure you take some time to look at that. So I talked about Module 3 already. So let's just have a look at our guiding creativity discussion, which really should relate directly to the cultivating creativity assignment. It doesn't explicitly, it sets you up, but I would be if I were you, I would be talking about what I plan to do and getting feedback from it, much like we did up here. And you're putting in your proposal. Sorry, you're investigating your own thing and getting some feedback for it. You can do this the same, although there's not as much time in between the two. They're actually due the same day, but you can start the creativity discussion well in advance. Anyways, let's have a look. So, Module 4, Guiding Creativity. So as it says here, the discussion is really identify strategies you might use to guide and enhance creative work once it has been initiated. So that's fine. You could take a much more global look at that in terms of your classroom, as opposed to the assignment, which is much more specific. So I won't read or go through that too much. I'll let you work your way through that yourself. Now down here, in this assignment, you will conceptualize a complete experience that you will curate and hopefully deliver to your colleagues or to your students or professionals that you lead, depending on your role. So some suggestions of what you could do. Again, there's a few comments here about a Rube Goldberg machine and a couple of other things. Some of these are much more concrete, but again, you're free to choose something that fits your educational context. That's always the best way, as far as I'm concerned, to approach any of these projects. So here are some suggestions. And then what you're going to do is describe what they'll create or what they will work on or what kind of process they will work through. So you need to discuss things like the freedoms and constraints. So I shouldn't say more interested in the constraints. Freedoms are the parameters. They use the term here, parameters. Constraints are often, in my mind, a bit more challenging because some of them are just imposed upon us, like time. Time is always a constraint. There's other constraints. If you want to do some kind of self-expression, people need to be able to manage the medium that they're going to use to express themselves. So there are constraints with the medium, with time, and a variety of other constraints that might pop up depending on exactly what they're going to do. Do you need to prepare them? So this speaks to one of the models where we look at, do you have the relevant skills, or what do you need to have in place before you actually start your activity? There's a range of brainstorming, free writing, and so forth that you can look at here. I've talked a bit in some of my feedback to you about the environmental considerations, meaning where do you work, what's your classroom like, what do you have available in the classroom environment or physical environment. Again, often those are in the form of constraints. The classroom's only so big, so you can't play certain games in your classroom, and so forth. Another one that's also very intriguing and we haven't spent a lot of time on is motivational consideration. So a few of you have talked about, one of you talked about rewards and how you built rewards into your creative experience. And when I do some reading about extrinsic versus intrinsic motivations, they often seem to be one or the other, but really, if you dig deeper and really think about what's an extrinsic motivation, like my salary. Like I'm not sorry, but I'm just not going to go to work if you're not going to pay me. So that's an extrinsic motivation, but very important. And that's all tied up. It's really hard to have a purely extrinsic and a purely intrinsic motivation. So I'm really interested in how you see those motivational considerations. And another thing that's not really mentioned here, but that has come up quite a bit in a lot of your comments, is the idea of an emotional response to the creative process. Now, that might be tied up a little bit with the motivational considerations, but I see it as a separate thing. Like, what's your emotional connection to that? And it also relates very much to cultural considerations. Like, how do you see this fitting into the culture of your classroom, or more broadly to the culture that you live within in your neighborhood or your family or your background of whatever? So some really intriguing aspects, and we'll try to work those all in. Maximum 1,000 words, please. I've been commenting to a lot of you to mind the constraint of the word count. Okay, well, I think that's plenty. You can read the rest and feel free to email me if you have any questions at all. Thank you so much.